Okay, let's see. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد. All right, let's start. Right, so where shall we begin? Okay, so I posted the questions. Hopefully, people, you guys take a look and you look at the question, and obviously, if there are follow-up questions, then let me know if there are follow-up questions related to whatever question is being addressed. Right. So can we use fine bone china or new fine china, porcelain? Because both of these are dishes. These are dishes quite expensive, and it undergoes processing. That's why they're so expensive. Fine bone china and porcelain, stuff like that. Both contain approximately 45-50% bone ash. That bone ash can either be from cow or it could be from swine. So the obvious question is, can we eat food off of that plate or that dish? This is the obvious question. So the question, it's rooted in that something that is haram, can it ever become halal? Right? So there is a method that something that is categorically haram, it can become halal. And I've given previous examples. So for example, alcohol, categorically haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the prohibition of alcohol in the Quran. It's haram, it's najas, it's impure, it's not permissible to consume. Yet, if that alcohol is left out to ferment longer, then it loses its alcoholic properties. It loses the property of inebriation, of becoming drunk, and that alcohol, it becomes vinegar. So, and vinegar, this is halal. So you have white wine vinegar and red wine vinegar. I mean, this is halal. Yes, at one time it was white wine, and at one time, sure, it was red wine, and it was haram. But once it becomes vinegar, then it becomes halal. It becomes halal. Another example that classical scholars they give is if a pig, right, falls into a salt mine and it becomes salt, it loses all of its properties that make it najas, that make it haram. So it becomes halal, right? That swine, it becomes halal because it's no longer considered a pig. It's undergone a complete metamorphosis. It's undergone a complete change, and that change has rendered that pig into something that is halal for consumption. And salt, this is halal for consumption. I gave another example based on this as well, that figs, all figs, or I believe there's a type of fig, it's very common, where a wasp lays its egg inside that fig, and in the larval stage, that wasp, it's in that fig, it's deriving benefit from that. From the pig. From that fig, not pig. So now it's deriving benefit from that fig. So it would be, and then it becomes, what happens, it becomes part of the fig, it dies. So it dies inside that fig. So essentially, it's no longer a wasp. Otherwise, you can't, go around catching wasps with a net and, cooking it or frying it and eating it. No, it doesn't work like that. It's prohibited to consume insects unless it's locust or something. In some places in Africa, I think it's a delicacy. Locusts are a delicacy. Chocolate covered grasshoppers, I've heard of that. Chocolate covered locusts in some places in the world that's tastes really good. And there are many places in Africa they actually catch locusts and they fry them, and then they eat them. So, it's not something that I'm crazy about trying, but it's halal. It's permissible. There's nothing, it's permissible for consumption. The Prophet ﷺ mentions that locusts are permissible for consumption. But does that mean that, you and I are going to try it? No, of course not. We're not going to try it. So now coming back to the question. So yeah, you have this wasp that lays eggs in this fig and it becomes part of the fig. So it's no longer a wasp. So that fig is halal for consumption. So I've given 3 examples so far. So you have wine, red wine, white wine turning into vinegar. Something haram becomes halal. You have a pig falling into a salt mine. Something haram becomes halal. Once that pig becomes salt, it's no longer considered a pig even, right? The composition, the chemical changes, the metamorphosis, whatever you want to call it, it's become something else entirely, and it has become a halal. It has become something halal for consumption. So it's halal for consumption. Now, based on this, fine bone china or new fine china, you want to buy your wife something nice for, I don't know, whatever, possibly for Muharram. I mean, that would have been the obvious thing to do. Buy fine bone china or something. It was really expensive, right? So they contain 45 to 50% bone ash from either cow or swine. So cow is not a problem, right? Cow is not a problem, but swine, obviously, this is going to be an issue. So they take the bones, they remove all of the gelatinous, whatever it's called, inside the bone. They burn it, high temperatures. It loses its chemical composition. It undergoes a complete change where it no longer, you can't even call it a pig anymore. You can't call it, you can't even call it, they just call it bone ash because it's from bone, right? And they use it to make, this fine china. But it's not called, you can't really call it a pig. You can't call it a swine. So you can use that. You can derive benefit from it because it has undergone that denaturation process where it loses all of its chemical composition. It loses everything that would make it otherwise haram. So now it's become halal, and it's permissible for usage. You can eat off of that plate, despite that plate being made from bone ash. Despite that porcelain or fine china made from bone ash, whether that bone ash is from cow, whether that bone ash is from swine, it's permissible for consumption. I mean, it's permissible to eat off of that plate. Okay. Dr. Hadi, regarding the 4 madhahib, how much of the rulings are based on the opinions of the imams themselves? How do they differ in terms of principles, usul, through which they derive rulings? All right. It's a good question. So now all of the 4 madhahib, they have a different set of usul. They have a different set of fundamentals. I mean, the best way I can describe usul to you is that it's a toolkit that all of the imams use to derive rulings from the Quran and from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So majority of the opinions that you find in the various madhab, they're from the imams themselves, right? So what they've done is their students, they transmitted the opinions of their respected imam. So for example, Imam Abu Hanifa, he had he had four outstanding students. All of them played a massive role in the transmission of Imam Abu Hanifa's fiqh, his jurisprudence, his usul, his aqidah. Right. So you have Imam Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah, who was his most senior student, and he played a great role in the transmission of Abu Hanifa's rulings, his thoughts, and his fiqh and his usul. Then you have Imam Muhammad, who played a role in the transmission of the hadith of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. And as a matter of fact, the entire corpus of the Hanafi school, it rests on Imam Muhammad's transmitted works from Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. So those transmitted works are known as Zahirul Riwayah. They're known as Zahirul Riwayah. You can consider that the backbone of Hanafi jurisprudence. The backbone of Hanafi jurisprudence is Zahirul Riwayah. Now, how many books? Zahirul Riwayah means the established rulings of the madhab, or the most apparent rulings of the madhab. So how many books are there that were transmitted? According to some scholars, it's 6 books. And some scholars say that one of the books was subsumed in another. So it's essentially just 5 books. So you have those 5 books are called Al-Asl, Kitab al-Ziyadat, Siyar Saghir, Siyar Kabir, and there's one more. I think it's An-Nawadir wa Ziyadat, I believe. But these are the 4 books. These are the 6 books in total. That Jami' al-Kabir, Jami' al-Saghir, Siyar Kabir, Siyar Saghir, Al-Asl, and Az-Ziyadat. These are the books that Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh transmitted from Abu Hanifa. As I mentioned, some scholars, they opine that it's not really 6 books, it's essentially 5 books. There's a difference of opinion over here. They feel that I believe it's Siyar Saghir that they feel it's subsumed in one of the larger books of Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh. I mean, these books, Jami' al-Saghir, it has been printed. Jami' al-Kabir, I'm not sure if that has been printed, but the Siyar works, the Maghazi works of Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh, that has been printed. Al-Asl has been printed. One of the, actually, the Imam of the Ayah Sophia, Dr. Muhammad Boyna Kalin, he has done work on the Asl of Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayh, the transmitted opinions of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, and that's widely available in the world. I myself have it in my library. So yes, the students, they did play a role in transmitting the thoughts of their respective scholars, their teachers. So Imam Muhammad was the second student of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. Then you have Zufr bin Huzayl, who is another outstanding student of Abu Hanifa. He also played a role in the transmission of Imam Abu Hanifa's opinion. And Hassan bin Ziyad al-Lu'lu'i, rahmatullah alayh. He too transmitted opinions from Abu Hanifa, rahmatullah alayh. Imam Malik, rahmatullah alayh, the primary, I mean, he had a number of students. The primary scholars who transmitted his opinions were Ibn al-Qasim. So Ibn al-Qasim, he's done an outstanding job in transmitting the opinions of Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh. So Ibn al-Qasim, what he did was, because he spent approximately more than 20 years with Imam Malik. So obviously you spend that kind of time with a scholar, you're going to transmit all of his opinions. So he wrote a book which is called Al-Mudawwanatul Kubra. Al-Mudawwanatul Kubra. And in there lies the backbone of the Maliki madhab. I mean, the Maliki madhab is pretty nuanced because they branched off, because a lot of Imam Malik students, they travel, Ibn al-Qasim, obviously he was in Medina, but you have Ibn Wahab, he came to Egypt. Then you have Yahya bin Yahya al-Laythi, who went to Andalus, Spain. So you have different camps within the Maliki school. I mean, you have plurality of opinions even in the Hanafi school. You have plurality of opinions in the Maliki school. Even the Shafi school, you have scholars who were known as Ashabul Wujuh. So the Ashabul Wujuh were those scholars who were who sat with Imam Shafi, who were brilliant students of Imam Shafi, and they transmitted the opinions of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh. So what happened with Imam Shafi was, my understanding is that Imam Nawawi rahmatullah alayh and Imam Rafi rahmatullah alayh, they collected all of the opinions of the Ashabul Wujuh, the contemporary scholars within Imam Shafi's time who studied with Imam Shafi. They collected their opinions, and they collected the opinions of Imam Shafi, and then they selected the opinions that they felt was most authoritative in light of the Quran and Sunnah. So Imam Nawawi rahmatullah alayh, he did that work. So in the Shafi madhab, there were two recensions. One recension was in the time of Imam Nawawi rahmatullah alayh. Second recension was in the time of Ibn Hajar Haytami and Imam Ramli. So the first recension, Imam Nawawi and Imam Rafi'i, Shafi scholars, they give preference to the opinions of Imam Nawawi. Second recension was Ibn Hajar Haytami and Imam Ramli. I believe the Egyptian Shafis, they give preference to Ibn Hajar Haytami because he was Egyptian, and the Yemeni Shafis, they give preference to Imam Ramli rahmatullah alayh, because he was from Yemen. Then you have the Hanbali school. I mean, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he had his students, of course, and they transmitted opinions from Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. So his school is also very nuanced. All of these schools, they're extremely, there's layers and layers to these schools. It's not as simple as that, this is the opinion of Abu Hanifa, this is the opinion of Imam Malik, this is the opinion of Imam Shafi, this is the opinion of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, because these schools, they were further, they in the beginning stages, they started off as just opinions of the scholars, but later on they were fine-tuned, they were crystallized, they were the pen was put to paper, and sometimes the scholar, they retracted from their original position altogether. So the scholars of the school who came later, they fine-tune the madhab even more. So every generation you had scholars who fine-tune their respective schools. This is why it's important to follow just one madhab. Otherwise, you're gonna get really confused. As a layman, you're gonna get confused. I mean, it just makes sense if you look at it. From an outsider's perspective. I mean, you have just outstanding scholars in every single madhab, and despite their brilliance, they still adhere to one school. I mean, that in of itself should speak volumes. That if you have a scholar like Ibn Hajar Asqalani, who is an outstanding scholar in the field of hadith, but yet still follow the Shafi school, right? I mean, that just tells us that who are we, to say that, what, I'm just going to follow Quran and hadith. I'm going to follow Quran and Sunnah. That doesn't make sense. If you have a scholar such as Imam Tirmidhi rahmatullah alayhi, he was a Shafi. He attributed himself to the Shafi school, right? And here he is compiling a book that is taught in the subcontinent, his compilation of hadith, Tirmidhi, Jami' Tirmidhi, his Sunan. So, but yes, he attributed himself to the Shafi madhab. He said that, this is the school that I'm following, that I'm adhering to. And he never diverged from the madhab in any way. He never said that, what, I've reached the stage where I don't need the madhab. No, he followed it because he felt that these scholars, they devoted their entire lives, they were experts in the field of Quran, in the field of hadith, and here we come in the 21st century thinking that what, I've reached the stage, I've reached the stage where I don't need an imam to tell me what to do to understand the Quran and to understand Bukhari. I can just read it myself because, well, I'm brilliant. So, well, that's the wrong attitude, unfortunately. That's the wrong attitude. That person is deluding himself. And not only that, if he's saying that to other people, then he's deluding everyone else as well. And as for scholars who say that, it's just best to follow the easiest opinion, I mean, if you're going to say that, then let's just follow the easiest opinion in every single thing, right? Let's just follow the easiest opinion in everything. Wherever there is the easiest opinion, let's just follow that. And there's a lot of easy opinions out there. But then again, those easy opinions, there's a possibility it can go against Quran, it can go against Sunnah. It can go against analogy that is based on Quran and Sunnah. It can go against ijma, it can go against consensus. So unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion out there. We're not qualified. I'm not qualified to say that I'm a mujtahid and I know what I'm talking about. I can interpret unilaterally the Quran and Hadith. No, I can't do that. Nor do I know any scholar who's capable of doing that even now. So you do have scholars who will disagree because they have one particular area of expertise. So they will disagree at times with their respective school, but they still attribute themselves to a school despite their brilliance in that field. And again, that speaks volumes that who are we when our Arabic is limited, our reading is limited, our knowledge of usul, toolkit of how the scholars derive ruling, that is limited. Our knowledge of hadith is limited. Our knowledge of the science of criticism and testing, that's limited. Everything is limited. So who are we to say that you know what, I can interpret things on my own? No, that's the wrong attitude, and you're just deluding yourself and you're deluding other people as well. So as far as how they differ in terms of principles, usul, so you have Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, his primary source is the Quran. He starts off with the Quran, and if he cannot find the ruling in the Quran, then he goes to hadith. And then he uses analogy, which is based on Quran and hadith. And then there's ijma', consensus of the scholars. Now that in of itself, ijma', we have to identify who the scholars are. And theoretically, it is possible to have ijma', consensus. But practically, has it ever happened? Allah knows best. I mean, there has been ijma' amongst the Sahaba, consensus amongst the Sahaba. There are instances of ijma' that are recorded from the Sahaba, but ijma' amongst the scholars, classical scholars, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best if that ever occurred. I know there are examples, but none come to mind at the moment. But having said that, Imam Abu Hanifa in his usul, what he does is that he takes from the Quran, he takes from the hadith, he uses analogy, qiyas, which is based on Quran and hadith and ijma'. Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh, what he does is that he takes the Quran, hadith, and he gives priority to the amal ahl Medina. The amal ahl Medina is the actions, the actions of the people of Medina, because the people of Medina, they were the great grandsons of the Sahaba, and Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi felt that they knew better because they're directly transmitting from their great grandfathers or grandfathers who were Sahaba. But the issue with that is that the Sahaba, not all of them stayed in Medina. Many of them, they went outside. You have scholars like Ibn Mas'ud and Ali radiallahu anh who went outside of Medina. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh, he went to Kufa and he spent a lot of time in Kufa. Ali radiallahu anh, he spent time in Kufa. And that's why Kufa became a center of learning where Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi was. So everyone has their own unique set of usul which they consider as authoritative. And then so you have Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, who were contemporaries. They had different sets of usul. Imam Shafi rahimahullah, who had a different set of usul. He accepted narrations that were transmitted, khabr ahad, so narrations that were transmitted by one individual. He accepted such narrations provided that the person transmitting them was thiqah. He was someone who was not impugned. He was someone that was reliable. And he's reliable in how he conveyed the narration. He was reliable in memory. So this is how Imam Shafi rahmatullah, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, they came to rulings. But all of them, they follow the Quran and the Sunnah. It's just how they interpret the Quran and Sunnah. There are obviously a lot of nuances when it comes to usul. The Hanafi usul is different. The Shafi usul is different. The Maliki usul is different. To go through all of that stuff takes a long time. It's not, every madhab is unique. And my area of expertise is the Hanafi madhab. I know something about the Maliki madhab. I know something about the Shafi madhab. I know something about the Hanbali madhab. But no way am I an expert in those three madhab. I can definitely contribute something, but I'm not an expert in those madhabs. So I know to some degree their usul, what they follow, and what they follow, and how they come about when it comes to their rulings. What is their most reliable position? So all of the madhabs, they have that. They're most reliable, they're most authoritative, they're most mu'tamad, they're mufta bihi, whatever you want to call it. All of these opinions, they have that. But and they have their own unique system. Okay. So is the hadith of Constantinople, is that hadith considered authentic? So yes, that hadith is considered authentic. I mean, I have a book over here, Juz'un fil Ahadith al-Warida. So this is the book right here. So جزء في الأحاديث الواردة في القسطنطينية اسطنبول اليوم كتبه نظام محمد صالح يعقوبي. So the author is a contemporary scholar by the name of Nizam Muhammad Salih Yaqubi. So in there, he's mentioned the hadith of Constantinople, very famous hadith, which the Prophet, which is mentioned in Musnad Ahmad. Imam Ahmad rahmatullah alayh, he narrates it. Where is it gone? Let me see. It's لتفتحن القسطنطينية فلنعم الأمير أميرها ولنعم الجيش ذلك الجيش. So in this hadith, which translates to that Constantinople will most certainly be conquered, how wonderful the leader will be, and how wonderful is the army going to be that conquers Constantinople. Now the hadith is mentioned in Musnad Ahmad, it's mentioned in Bukhari's Tarikh al-Saghir, it's mentioned in Tabrani, it's mentioned in Hakim. Ibn Hajar Haythami rahmatullah alayh, who is the student of Allama Iraqi and colleague of Ibn Hajar, he has authenticated this hadith and said rijaluhu thiqat, that the chain of narrators, all of them are reliable. So there is no reason for this hadith to be impugned. Then you have contemporary scholars like Albani, who has said the hadith is weak, but I don't think Albani rendering the hadith weak holds any kind of weight whatsoever once the narrators are examined. So this is quite a number of hadith related to Constantinople being conquered. Yes, it is authentic. The hadith is authentic, and it did happen. Imam Muhammad Fatih, he conquered Constantinople when he was 21 years old, and yes, he is the man that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prophesied, more than about 1,000, how many years? About 700, 800 years ago, from Imam Muhammad's time. From Muhammad al-Fatih's times. So the hadith is authentic. So third question: are we allowed to play chess? Backgammon. There's hadith that speak about the prohibition of backgammon. Chess is allowed, provided that certain conditions are observed. One doesn't gamble. It doesn't, if you're playing a fast-paced game, on the clock, it's not a problem. So as long as there's no gambling involved, there's no, what is that called? There's no gambling. It doesn't consume too much time where you're not fulfilling your obligations, and you're not missing your fara'id. It's permissible to play chess. It's not something that's that we can say that it's haram or makruh. So as long as a person doesn't gamble, or a person is not wasting time, and the obligations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are being fulfilled, obligations of the family are being fulfilled, it's okay to play chess. All right, what is the Islamic method to congratulate new parents? So there's a hadith which is transmitted in Musnad al-Bazzar. Musnad al-Bazzar is one of the hadith books. The hadith, in the hadith it's mentioned, Barakallahu laka fihi wa ja'alahu barran taqiyya. Right? Barakallahu laka fihi wa ja'alahu barran taqiyya. May Allah instill blessings in this child for you and make him righteous and God-fearing. So you're going to have to change the pronoun Barakallahu laka fiha if it's a daughter, wa ja'alaha barran taqiyatan. Right, so you're going to have to change the pronouns in the sentence. But if it's a boy, very simple, Barakallahu laka fihi wa ja'alahu barran taqiyya. Another Tabi'i, he's on record where he states that the method to congratulate new parents is جعل الله مباركا عليك وعلى أمة محمد sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah make him blessed for you and to the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And a third supplication, it's been transmitted by Hasan al-Basri rahmatullah alayh: شكرت الواهب وبورك لك في الموهوب وبلغ شده ورزقت بره. That may you thank the giver, may you be blessed in this gift, may the child reach the maturity of years, and may you be granted its righteousness. And these are all greetings that, I mean, not greetings, but these are all, this is the method to congratulate new parents. Right. Let's see. I'll try to put these du'as on my Facebook, and you can just memorize it from there. If a woman's scarf is see-through in the sunlight, can salah be offered in that scarf? I mean, see, this is a question which is more related to what is the awrah that needs to be covered. So a man's awrah that needs to be covered is dissimilar to the awrah of women. So the man's awrah, it is below his navel to the knees, according to the school of Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh. According to Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh and the Malikis, and I believe the Hanbalis as well, the knees are excluded from this. So that has to be covered for men. A woman's awrah is the entire body except the face, the hands, and the feet. So that has to be covered for women. So in the salah, the awrah has to be covered for men and women. So for the woman, the awrah is the entire body except the face, the hands, and the feet. So that can remain uncovered. So if the scarf is thin, it's see-through in the sunlight, the pattern of the hair and the way the hair is the way the hair is braided, or the way the hair is kept, it's visible, then that will be considered a thin scarf. So the scarf should be thicker, or perhaps put another scarf on top. And of course, the clothing that should be worn, it should be clothing, and this goes for men as well. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be form-fitting, right? So just as in salah, men, it's prohibited for men to wear form-fitting clothing, right? Where a person's t-shirt comes up, and this happens often in the salah. Someone's offering salah, and and the guy has tight pants on, and he goes into sujood, and the entire, that person's derriere is showing. That's, astaghfirullah, when I was young, when that used to happen, I used to laugh like crazy. Now, it's not funny. I still kind of find it amusing. I guess it's just, people don't pay attention. But the thing is that we need to be very careful, how we're offering our salah. We're going into sujood and our derriere is showing. It's not a good thing. People in the back, they're offering their salah as well, and not everybody is has their eyes stationed on the place where they're going to do sujood. The eyes are wandering in the salah. This is just how people are offering salah these days. So just as it's prohibited for men to wear form-fitting clothing, it's also in salah. It's not permissible for women to wear form-fitting clothing and to wear transparent scarves, which would render the salat as null and void. So the scarf has to be thick because it's considered part of the awrah. Okay. Can a mother give adhan in the ears of a newborn? I believe this question probably stems from the fact that after a woman gives birth, then there is postnatal bleeding. So is she considered impure in the sense that she is not permitted to do dhikr? But the scholars, they've talked about this. And if a woman is in the state of impurity, postnatal bleeding, which is nifas in Arabic, she's still permitted to give adhan in the newborn's ear. You can even do dhikr in that state. The only thing that is not permitted is recitation of Quran in entire sentences, in entire ayat, right? So if of course a woman is going to be excluded if she's memorizing Quran. So if a woman is memorizing Quran and the cycle comes along, obviously she can't stop memorizing the Quran, or otherwise she's going to forget. So she's going to keep on continuing with memorization of the Quran, and make sure that gloves or some kind of barrier is used when touching the Quran. But yes, a mother can give adhan and iqama in the ears of a newborn. It's not a requisite for a man to give it. It's absolutely permissible. Okay. All right, so this is all we have today. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. So if there are further questions, let me know for next week. I think Dr. Hadi asked a good question. This regarding the four madhhab, how much of the rulings are based on the opinions of the imams themselves? How do they differ in terms of principles, usul, through which they derive rulings? We could probably do a program, a seminar on this. This would be pretty interesting. I'm not sure how many people are going to come because it's a topic that requires, some kind of, interest. I'm not sure how much interest it's really going to draw. So, but I'm willing, if don't care how many people participate, but if it's something that the community wants, I'm ready to do it. I think that's the job of the imam, that whatever the community wants, the imam should try to do to the best of his ability. That's the only way to bring people to the masjid. I think it's important to bring people to the masjid, to populate our masajid, and if that means doing programs like this, so be it. Okay, so no other questions, I'm assuming. So inshallah, we'll stop for today. Inshallah, continue next week. Whatever your questions are. Oh, you asked on the YouTube chat. Where's the YouTube chat? Adil, where's the YouTube chat, man? We asked some questions on the YouTube chat. Where is the YouTube chat? What are the questions? I don't know. On my chat, it says, on the live chat, it says, chat disconnected. Please wait while we try to reconnect you. Unable to connect to chat. Please try again later. Man, I just noticed this. Crap. Yeah, just if you can, why don't you do this? Why don't you text them to me if it's possible? Hold on. Okay. Just texted you, all right. Okay, so H. Min, is there any legitimacy to following practicing mysticism? The answer I've heard is that any practice that were developed after the Prophet ﷺ are non-legitimate. So mysticism, not exactly sure. I mean, when scholars speak about Sufism and mysticism, they're talking really about ihsan, right? So ihsan is something that all Muslims agree upon. In the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, by the way, Jazakallah khairan Adil for sending me. I don't know what's wrong with my chat, man. YouTube is messed up. I have no idea why this happens. And why is the chat disconnected? Please wait while we try to reconnect you. And they still haven't reconnected me. Oh well, no problem. So anyway, I was talking about mysticism, right? So the hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Jibreel asks that what is ihsan? Well, ihsan. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, okay, ihsan is an ta'budullah ka'annaka tara, fa in lam takun tara fa innahu yarak. That ihsan is that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, an ta'budullah ka'annaka tara, as if you are looking at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the first stage of Sufism. So all of us need to try to attempt to get to that stage where we are worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if we're looking at Allah, right? Second stage is فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَى. If you're unable to get to that stage, to attain that stage, right? Then know at least that Allah is watching you. That is a second stage, right? That is the second stage. So this is what mysticism is. I mean, anything else, right, that people do. I mean, if people are doing like weird dancing and stuff, right, like the whirling dervishes in Turkey. So the whirling dervishes, I've actually seen them in Turkey. So they dance with their, they're twirling round and round with Mevlevi caps. So they have one hand towards the sky and one hand towards the ground. So I think what that means, according to them, I mean, it's a symbolic gesture. They're trying to attain the rahmat of Allah with one hand, and they're bringing that rahmah down with another hand. So I mean, this is what it means, as far as the whirling dervishes are concerned. I mean, yeah, if it didn't exist in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then yeah, it's not something that we can really, sanction and accept. It has to be something that was mentioned, that was in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, and the Tabi'in. But all of it, it's based on ihsan. So these different tariqas, it's all based on ihsan. It's all for the purpose of staying away from sin. So you hear about these different tariqas, the Qadiri and the Chishti and the Saharwardi and the what is that? I forgot, man. It's in North Africa. The Naqshbandi and the Tejani. So these are all there. There's a whole bunch of different tariqas, which are Sufi tariqas. They're just they're all mystical tariqas, but they're all based on ihsan. It's all about protecting oneself and safeguarding from sin. But that doesn't mean, to safeguard from sin that you start dancing or something. No. It's you have to go through exercises, and there are ways that you stay away from sin. So the scholars who are experts in that field, this is what they they would tell you, that this is the method to stay away from sin. And by the way, there are Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, all of these great scholars that we hear about. They were all part of these Sufi tariqas. Ibn Taymiyyah, he used to go to a spiritual lodge, just to meditate and stuff. Something that we call khankas today. In Pakistan, we have these khankas and stuff. So they're called tekkas in Turkey. I think tekke or something, tekke. And in Arabic, it's called, what is it called? Forgot what it's called in Arabic. But there's still these spiritual lodges in Egypt. Ibn Hajar used to attend one. Khanqa Shaykhuniya, Khanqa Shaykhuniya. Ibn Hajar used to go there. Allama Aini used to go there. Hanafi scholar, Shafi scholar, respectively. And then you have these khanqas in India, Pakistan. I mean, you got a lot of messed up people who are running these things, and a lot of people do bid'at and everything. So you have to find the right scholar to associate with, and that right scholar will tell you the best way to protect and safeguard yourself from sin. Okay, beer battered fish, is this okay to eat? I believe you answered this question before, but wanted to clarify. So yeah, beer battered fish, I mean, as long as that beer is cooked, I mean, obviously you're not gonna, eat that fish raw. And if a person wants to get drunk, I mean, you would have to eat a lot of fish. But before you get drunk, most likely you're gonna die of indigestion or something. You're probably gonna have to go to the hospital, get your stomach pumped or something like that. So so if that fish is cooked and all traces of the alcohol are no longer there, they're just gone altogether, so you can't really taste the alcohol, it's fine. But it has to be cooked very thoroughly. Okay. So yeah, as long as it's cooked thoroughly, all the alcohol is gone, it's disappeared, it has dissipated by cooking on the fire, on the stove, on the electric stove, whatever, it's fine, and there's no taste, it's okay. So the alcoholic content, it's completely removed, so yeah, it's fine. Okay, yes, Dr. Minhas, I do agree. A seminar on the madhab would be great. It's all about advertising. It's all about making a nice. Nowadays, everyone is all about packaging things nicely. So if we have to do that, where we have to package things in a nice little presentation, then yeah, that's what we'll have to do just to get people interested. Okay, where are Ya'juj and Ma'juj? Allah knows best, Dr. Seb, where Ya'juj and Ma'juj are. I mean, they're mentioned in the Quran. Zulqarnain, he trapped them in between two mountains. He erected a wall, ramparts, and he further solidified that wall with copper and stuff, with brass and everything. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best where Ya'juj and Ma'juj are. We just know what is mentioned in the Quran, but as to where they are right now, and if we can find them through satellite, Allah knows best. I mean, nowadays, even with satellites, and what happened to Malaysia, that flight that was from Malaysia to I don't know where it was. I mean, they still don't know where it disappeared. So, if satellites are that powerful, then perhaps they should look for that flight that disappeared. It's still a mystery where that flight went and how it disappeared. But as far as Ya'juj and Ma'juj are concerned, we only know about them what is mentioned in the Quran, that Zulqarnain he trapped them in between two mountains because they were guilty of spreading fasad and corruption throughout the lands. So they were trapped between these two mountains by Zulqarnain. They will come towards the end of time. This is our belief, that they will come to the end of towards the end of time, and they will spread their mischief and corruption and fasad. And Isa alayhi salam will make dua against them, and all of them, eventually they will all die after the dua of Isa alayhi salam. This is part of our aqidah. This is part of our creed. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Jazakallah khairan. We'll continue next week. Whatever your questions are, send them to me, post them to me, or text them, whatever, and I'll get to them next week. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.